Okay, I think I'm now recording. Yes, I should be recording now. Let's see.
Thanks.
Yes, I am. Cool. So now I'm gonna share my screen again. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Cool. So we want to move the external component config API types to case.io component config. And what are we gonna do? The abstract is basically now the component config is really fragmented all over the code base, and like all the components do things differently basically, and we want to unify this, and we want to make it here in goals. We want to find a home for all these API types as a staging repo with minimal dependencies, so that the projects outside of Kubernetes can create component config types and consume them, and different parts of Kubernetes itself can easily use these constants and so forth.
Yeah.
And then split internal types from version types by putting the external types in the staging repo and the internal types inside of the Kubernetes repo. And then we have a monolithic component config, an old group that is not functional at all because there's basically no maintainer of it. So we should just remove this and favor multiple API groups. The current state of the world is that the kubelet is really good at component config. Mike Toffen has written this document.
Yeah.
That is a long document saying exactly how component config should work and how the kubelet did it, with a lot of references and stuff. Mike Denise has also written earlier, a year ago, basically on why component config and how to do it.
Yeah.
So that is also a doc. And now we want the actionable plan, how to move these into the staging repo is here. So the kubelet does everything right. The proxy has some support. It's version 1 alpha 1, and the spec is not stable yet. But the API group is right. It embeds both the proxy, scheduler, controller manager, all embed the same duplicated client connection configuration struct. And that is wrong. We should have that in a generic place and not duplicate all around. The kind is okay, and the proxy can technically read from a file, but doesn't do flag precedence. So flags should have higher priority than the config file. So you can specify a flag, and you can specify a config file and then override some specific parts with a flag. And then the config file reading is not ED tested. So that is bad. The current code of the scheduler and controller manager is in package API's component config, this monolithic component config API group that is just legacy. And there's one, well, it's all focused, and nobody uses it, really. The kind is right, but it also is in the wrong API group and duplicates this client configuration. The scheduler can technically read from a config, but doesn't do flag precedence either, like the kubelet does. And the config file reading feature is not ED tested. The controller manager is pretty much the same. Kind is right, API group wrong, but the controller manager doesn't have support for reading from config. API server is the worst. It doesn't even expose component. It doesn't even have component configuration structures. So that's the first thing that needs to be done. create API, like component config for the API. And then it obviously doesn't support reading from ComponentConfig. The Cloud Control Manager, I don't think we're gonna... I haven't made up my mind yet. I will sync with Stefan. But as the Cloud Controller Manager is just a stopgap, is like a migration path for the cloud providers. It's not something we're going to have very long. I think we're just going to go with internal types and not move these out to component config. Instead, just have them in internally in the Kubernetes repo. So yeah, here are some of the goals. We also have enable the staging bot, so that github.com Kubernetes component config repo is created.
Oh.
That's going to be neat.
Yeah.
What we don't want to do for this this cycle is graduate the API versions. It's just the schema is just gonna be the same. Obviously, we hope for people to, when we've done this move, to go ahead and graduate from version 1, alpha 1 to beta. But well, that's up to the individual SIGs to actually go ahead and do that. And we won't change the components themselves either to support component config for this specific proposal, because this is it's very scoped, very small.
Yeah.
So yeah, that are non-goals for the time being. And also, with regards to the API server, we're not gonna create. We will strive and start the process of creating a component config extract for the API server, but it's not directly a goal of this proposal. That is more about doing this. We want to create the an API group per component. So kubelets, config kits.io, kubeproxy, control manager, kube API, so kube scheduler. And the same thing here, kubelet with a capital K, kubeproxy with capital K and P, K, C, M, capital, etc. For the kind name. That is going to be removed, as we said here. But we're gonna move the external types to case.io, component config, kube API server, for example, or kube controller manager, what version and types go. So it's really similar to case.io API, which has been a success. And the internal types will either, we haven't decided on it yet, might be package as well. Will either be in CMD or package.
Yeah.
What's currently written here is CMD, but I just chatted with Stefan, and I think we will change our minds before submitting to GitHub to propose going to package component APIs instead. So alternative case.io Kubernetes package component APIs component and config. That would mirror that is the existing spec for the kubelet and the kube proxy. So then they wouldn't have to move, which is good. Create a meta package with structs generic to all or many ComponentConfig API groups. So we could have something like case.io meta or case.io ComponentConfig shared, common, generic, or whatever. And that would host the client client connection configuration that is generic to the kube proxy, scheduler, and controller manager. And then proposal is to remove the monolithic API ComponentConfig API group when the other types have moved out. So this depends. If we even move this, it depends, because it's already in the right place if it's in package. I think I'm going to be able to get Mike to do this move. He has done all the other kubelet bits, so he might want to do this one as well. Kube proxy should be moved here, and start referencing client connection configuration. The kube scheduler is going to move from the monolithic API group to this path, and DXU is going to help out with that. And then I thought you might want to help out with the kube controller manager and do the move here. Can you help with that?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, cool. So what needs to be done there is the following. I know you've been doing a lot of API machinery changes, so I think you should be familiar with it. So yeah, this is going to be in the meta package. Sorry, if you do you have a question? Did you have a question or?
Hello?
Hey?
No.
Okay.
No problem. You can go ahead.
Okay. So here we have the.
Oh no, yeah, I have a problem about the leading election configure.
Yeah.
This section this structure shown by many structures such as the Kubernetes and Kube Control Manager and Cloud Control Manager. I want to know the leader election configure which fold to put. Yeah, this is the line 100. 160. The leader election configure. Yeah.
Yeah. That,
160.
Yeah.
This section is things. This section shown by many sections such as the schedule configure and the Kube controller manager configuration.
Yeah. I think this could go in the meta package. Do you think that would make sense? In this shared in this shared place, so that multiple components can.
My mistake. Yeah.
No worries. I'm gonna actually start adding that. Proposed additions. client connection configuration leader election configuration. So at least those two, I think, would make sense to put there. So then both the scheduler and the controller manager can reference those. And what is this used for?
It's used in the
in there.
In the Kuba schedule. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that they should be referenced from API machinery. Yes, there we go. So you see that this is exactly the same struct as this, but this has all the other like API machinery stuff that is needed for serialization and protobuf and all the string, and so it should be changed so that it moves. But yeah, the controller manager. So yeah, to do this should be removed, and meta v1 dot group resource should be referenced instead. So that like that, and then I saw another problem here. To do this should be called GC ignore in JSON. So yeah, basically what needs to be done is every let me see. So the first thing is just move stuff out to the staging repo. But before we can do that, we need to cut the dependencies, because this package, this is what should be moved out. The controller manager parts of it this package can't rely on the core repo. So all these dependencies need to be removed. We can't have this can't depend on Kubernetes core. Instead, we need to move the constants we're referencing need to be moved here, like something like this, or in typed Go. That is probably even better. Instead of default Go. So then, for example, what does the API reference? So default scheduler name, namespace system, that should come from meta v1 namespace system. It's for example. And then we had what other kubelet APIs that should be referenced or moved here as well, or some generic place that is accessible from both from staging, basically, and ports, scheduler ports. That is D is going to do that one. It's a pointer. It would surprise me if this this whole package might have to move out to API machinery. Let's see. In package util. Where's its pointer? Yeah, I would expect to move this whole package. Maybe move the util Kubernetes package util pointer to case.io API machinery, so that it can be accessed from case.io component config as well. If that makes sense to you. So yeah, it should also reference leader collection configuration from that API group, and similar. So do you think that this kind of thing makes sense to you to do?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions on what more exactly that should be done?
No. You can go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I have much more to say, but basically, this is all about like going through this file, fixing problems in it that are like relating to this kube controller. Like for example, it should probably have a Godak here, full bar. The cloud provider, and then a non-goal, as I said, is actually changing the config unless really necessary. So, for example, what Mike Tofen did in this, what he said here, and that there's maybe here. So
I have not seen the cloud provider in this box.
sorry, that
the cloud provider instructions since not occurred in the maintenance box. Maybe you can go ahead.
yeah, please say what you meant. I'm not sure I understood what you mean.
No. Maybe my misunderstand it. Yeah. You can go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have any specific thing to say, but yeah. So I think that the cloud controller manager configuration can. Let me think. let's say we do package for the, so let's say we move the internal types. This is the internal type. To controller and APIs, and then we'd have kube controller manager config, and then we'd also have cloud controller manager config, I think. And then these this will be the internal API, but this will only be here. It will only have an internal API and not an external API. So it can't be deserialized or serialized. It's just used for inside of Kubernetes for the time being. And if we ever decide with the cloud controller manager or API group that if we decide that, well, we should have an external API with them, we can create it later. But at the moment, I think this is just fine that we have only an internal API for this, because that's also what we have now, basically. I mean, we don't support reading a config file in the cloud control manager, and I don't see us doing that either. Because
I have a question.
Yeah.
How about the common section sense section in the cloud controller manager and the Kubernetes controller manager, such as cloud provider configuration and the debugging configuration. That's why we put those sections in the mental file.
So you mean this one, for example?
Such as we put the cloud controller manager configuration in the cloud controller manager config folder, and put the Kubernetes controller manager config in the Kubernetes controller manager config folder. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically this one and this one.
Yeah. This and one. The Kubernetes Cloud shell. Yeah. Which folder to put?
Yeah.
That we put those in the metadata. The meta 就是the comma shell folder.
Wait, let me think.
Since those suggestions are shown by the Kubernetes and the Cloud Controller Manager, that we need
Okay, so I'm gonna ask Stefan more about this, but when thinking now, I would actually be okay. I think for the moment, it would be still a huge improvement to put everything and put only this one inside of this API group, and then we would only, or wait, no, I might have a even better idea. Let me check the cloud controller manager code. We start from there, we use the app, we have that. We check out config. So how about vendoring instead here, you would vendor controller APIs kube controller manager config, like that. And in that file, and then you would move Or like that we would create like this, maybe. Yeah, maybe this is the best. Controller manager config. Here, and then you in that in this configuration, you would just reference types from this part. So
yeah.
so you would move this one to this folder, and then from this you would write cube controller manager config dot, like this. So which would reference these types. So they would only be in one place. They would only be here, this block. But you can reference it from the
can we rename the Kuba controller manager config into the controller manager config? Yeah, that's in the PKG director.
Oh yeah, wait.
No, you have added the new. Yeah.
So I had here
in the direction PKG. Yeah. This folder can we rename to controller manager configure?
so
I have a question about just we put the four common strong structure in the controller APIs this direction. Yeah, the four.
So do you mean that?
Yeah. Those four sections the cloud provider configuration and the debugging configuration and the general component configure and the corporation configuration. The four commercial suggestion we put in the PKG controller and APIs this folder.
So yeah, I would maybe do something like, I think port and address is not cloud specific. Then I would rename. Yeah, I'm gonna talk to Stefan about it, but yeah, if we would make for the controller manager, we would also mirror the internal API, mirror in cube API, and then generic to generic, or just controller manager located in generic controller manager, like that. So that we would split, and then we would have generic controller manager configuration, and this would probably have the deep copy instructions tag there. And then we would move port and address there, because that seems generic enough to like a controller manager. And also use service account credentials seems kind of generic to any controller manager. That is cloud specific, that is cloud specific, that is cloud specific, this isn't cloud specific. Lead redirection is definitely this seems cube API, cube PS. Client connection configuration. How is kubeconfig file given to the controller manager?
How no research about it.
What?
No, I say I have no research about this suggestion. Since this section we have no use in the controller manager. Yeah.
I think that maybe this as well would be a generic controller manager thing. I don't know, but I would maybe expect that. And also,
no, we cannot move this into this section. Maybe this is just for Kubernetes controller manager, not a cloud controller manager. Yeah.
Yeah, but isn't controller a thing that any controller manager should have? I mean, yes, the cloud controller manager doesn't do it now, but shouldn't a generic shouldn't a generic controller manager be able to specify what controllers to run?
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is just like me thinking about it. But then I think that maybe some content type. Yeah, definitely. So instead of having, we should definitely do this, I think. The generic control. So instead of doing these, it should be doing this. And what else is generic to a controller manager? Generic component. Scheduler name. Election. Maybe something like this as well. This seems kind of generic. That's both like any controller component or any component like the scheduler and the controller manager both want to set health C bind address and metrics bind address.
Yeah.
So something we might move this into some meta and enable profiling. Contamination profile. So these seem to be kind of to do maybe we want a generic struct for these options, like type generic component or whatever. That this would be then in meta, the meta package that would for that these are specific to any component, and both this is things both the controller manager and the scheduler wants. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So I mean, this is not the first thing that should be done, but I'm just like trying to think through the whole flow. That these when we start to look at these types, this is the kind of stuff we want to do. We want to identify this should be configurable for a generic controller manager, but also for a scheduler. So then we put this in the meta package and can reference from there, and it should go into the generic. Yeah. So And this is then this is kind of what?
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
No. Go ahead. Yeah.
So yeah, that is basically things we're gonna start thinking about, and then when we have a good, and yes, I do think it makes sense to put a generic controller manager package that is different, that is like has a different, that is a total different API group, that whoever that is writing their own controller manager can import in their API, you know. When they're creating their own API group, say I want to make a foo controller manager, and now when I create this new foo controller manager component configuration, I'm gonna reference case.io ComponentConfig generic component controller manager, right? And use that as a starting point. So in terms of what to execute on first, the first thing is we'll update the doc with more implementation details after everything's like decided. But most probably, let's see, API machinery package util. Most probably we'll move the pointer package here. Then we should get rid of the defaults. Where are these? So that can be done already today. You start checking what in the controller manager spec is like depending on Kubernetes. And after that, we can start to create the staging repo and move over the stuff. But I also think that, for example, these three should be moved to the generic controller manager. We can talk with STTS as well about that. And
it seems that the STS want to get rid of the port and address. For he want to use the security pattern to access to the controller manager.
Sorry, I didn't get that. Can you please repeat?
Since STS want to get rid of the port and address in the general controller manager config. Yeah, the port and address.
Yeah,
He want to get rid of this. Maybe since in the option there have a security section.
Yeah. You mean that like any component that exposes a port and address should have its own struct that is security related.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So does that exist already, or should it be done later?
He may be maybe I have little knowledge about. Is one still in case one in the such as in the direction about simply cookie option. The options go in Kubernetes Controller Manager. It seems that he want to, yeah.
So
option. Yeah. In the line sales. Yeah, in the line 108. Yeah.
here.
Yeah. He since he want to get rid of all the port and address you
Yeah, definitely.
What I mean is that we need the port and the port and address value in the general component structure.
Yeah, I think that something like let me check here. Generic options security.
I think the more detail maybe you can talk about STDS.
Yeah, because it's it's a lot of, but yeah, the generic idea is like reduce dependencies, make it possible to just move everything. And if we, I mean, for a moment, we could even like the first version could just move everything, including the controller manager. I'm going to talk to SCDS about this as well, but maybe even move the cloud controller manager, everything just to this package. And if then before we and when we are in this place and have everything done, we can start moving the bits to the right places, you know. So we can split cloud controller manager to its own place here. We can split the generic to its own API group here, and similar. Is that okay by you?
No problem.
Okay, but do you have any more questions, or is this okay by now? Do you know at least how to start attacking this problem?
I think the general architecture seems not clear. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we do the thing is to choose a good direction to put the structure. Yeah, but you have explained more before. Yeah. Maybe have more question later when I doing the work. We can help. Well, refine it about you.
Yeah. So do you think it's okay right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like a thing you also might want to do in the beginning here is like create JSON tags for everything.
Forgot.
So because that is like that is missing,
Yeah.
and it needs to be there for there's a lot of small things that need to be changed, and like all the time something like this is also like it should be like the JSON tag should be PVC with small, or no, PV claim binder etc. etc. You know, so that because PV is like that's one word, how to say it. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that should be moved a bit and improved. So the first, so the first PR that you might want to create is just in this without moving anything. Is just like add comments to these and fix the JSON tags for every place.
Yeah.
And after that, you can remove this one in favor of the meta v1 group resource. Then we get a bit less to deal with and copy around. After that, we can start thinking about moving more to generic controller manager configuration instead of having something in kubecloud shared. Adding a deep copy tag here. Client connection should probably be in here as well, instead of embedding the fields right, duplicating the fields here. And then the defaulting code should be basically. Let's see. I have no. That. Let's see how many dependencies there are here. APIs component config version 1 alpha 1. Oh well. Just this takes, yeah. So there we go. We depend on Golang packages. That is good. But then we depend on these four. So we need to get rid of these. The other ones are okay because they're from API machinery, and that is perfect. That is what we want. So yeah, cutting the default depths and doing the JSON tags, deep copy tag, and some small fixes in this is where we're gonna start. Is that okay by you? And generally improving. Okay. Do you have any more questions, or is this fine fine by now, and you can ping me on PR. So.
Currently, no problem. Maybe I will later.
Yeah, but such things always happen. Okay. It was really nice to talk to you, and I'll share this recording with you as well, so you can check.
Check. Maybe check later.
Yeah, check later exactly what I said and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stop sharing there, and yeah, if nothing else, I'll just say goodbye, and we will see each other some other time. And if you have a question, just like shoot it my way on Slack.
Good luck.
Cool. Bye.
Bye bye.
Take care.
Bye bye.